Well, along with Florida, the other big winner-take-all one is Ohio, where Trump is up by a couple points. But John Kasich does have a lot of advantages in this race. He has the ground game, it's his state. His favorables in the state are more than 20% higher than Trump. And the late vote, the late deciders.
And he's almost always underestimated.
Yeah, and the late deciders in pretty much every GOP primary, regardless who they vote for, do go against Trump. At the same time, Trump does lead in pretty much every recent poll coming out. So, Peter, let's say Kasich can't stop Trump, and he wins both Ohio and Florida. Would the GOP then cave and embrace their new overlord, or are they going to continue fighting this shit until the convention?
I don't know what else the GOP really can do. It's a delegate count game in one sense, but it's also a popularity contest at some point. I mean, what would the GOP be able to do, and why would they possibly do it at this point? I mean, their game at that point is to try to see what they can do to control Trump, not to get rid of him. Figure out a way to try to get a decent, quote unquote, normal vice president in with him, whatever. But I mean, it's like, Jeb and Marco get together. It's like the GOP kids trying to influence, who gets to be the quarterback or something. I mean, it just doesn't matter anymore. And the same with the GOP. At any point, Trump just basically says to the GOP, go fuck yourselves. And Trump always has the ultimate, the nuclear option of saying to the GOP, fine, you can nominate Ted Cruz. I'm going to run as an independent, and we can all watch Hillary be president for 8 years. Because, I mean, Trump can easily just shrug his shoulders and say, day after the election, I'm going to go back to being a businessman. You guys are going to be losers. So, no, the GOP has no choice.
Well, the scenario that's been floated by a number of people on a lot of different networks is the convention rules meeting that's coming up in April, and the Republican Party using that as a last ditch resort. Josh mentioned it earlier. So they're going to meet in April, and so they could change pretty much how the entire convention goes. First of all, as the rules state now, a candidate needs to win at least eight states to be considered for a nomination, which means that Romney, Paul Ryan, some of the people that others have brought up wouldn't be eligible, although they could change that. One other possibility is that the Rules Committee could change the delegate minimum, so even if Trump does get the 1237, it still wouldn't steal him the nomination. Josh? Do you think the GOP is willing to go that far?
I don't know. The other one that I heard, too, is that they just changed the rules saying delegates can vote for whoever they want on the first ballot. And,
right.
Then you get your two-thirds, your K6 and your Carsons and all those guys from the other states to just say not Trump, and that's the other way they do it. I don't know, because, again, it's the establishment, the GOP establishment versus Trump. And you don't get more establishment than the party's rules committee. I mean, that is – now, it depends on how passionate this never Trump spirit is in that particular circle and in April. Again, if the never Trump hashtag and the opinion essay after editorial about never Trump is to be believed, there are Republicans who think that if Trump is the nominee, that will destroy the party. I'm more inclined to think that if they try to do political tricks to cheat Trump of a nomination that he earns through votes, that will destroy the Republican Party. But it depends on how firmly held that other belief is. If people think nominating Trump destroys the party, they'll risk fucking with the convention rules if they can pull it off. Is that likely? I'd say about as likely as, Donald Trump was to be the nominee 6 months ago, but here we are.
In 2012, there was an establishment effort to change the rules significantly. I believe that's where this 8-state minimum came from.
Yeah, it was the Ron Paul thing.
Ron Paul's people were trying to fuck with the delegates, and the party people had to go to all the different state conventions to make sure they had everyone lined up. What are you going to say, Josh?
It was the Nevada delegation, too. They were supposed to cast 25 votes for Romney, and then they did a poll, a whip count right before, and 22 were for Ron Paul.
Yeah, it was amazing what they did. In Iowa, where Romney supposedly won, then Santorum won, but then Paul ended up getting all the delegates. So
Yeah.
This has been done to a certain extent before. So, Peter, do you think they're willing to go even further this time around to stop what they believe is a destruction of their own party?
No, because parties exist to win elections, and basically saying the guy who's where he is because everybody wants to vote for him, we're going to get rid of that guy, and we're going to haul in someone who nobody really was that much in favor of to begin with. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense.
Has Donald Trump won a 51% majority in any state?
I don't think anyone's won 50% in any state.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was being rhetorical because he hasn't. So
yeah,
it's not as if the majority of the party doesn't want him. So again, the argument can be made that turning over those votes is sort of what the majority wants.
Primaries?
Well, I mean, open the window and yell out.
Exactly.
And
that's
then
the question.
Who's winning, and the answer is going to be Trump. If the GOP puts their candidate, and if that candidate is named Donald Trump in the White House, then the GOP is in a position to do all sorts of things. There's a million appointments that get made. There's Supreme Court justice appointments. There's cabinet positions, yada, yada, yada. So whether it's Trump or Cruz or a guy from Mars, the GOP winning the election is still the GOP winning the election, and that prize outshines
not if the guy who wins the office hates the GOP. Again, he loves the GOP that the voters who identify as Republicans, but the Republican Party officials, the big money donors, which arguably is maybe a good thing about his campaign, and the type of people who do these things like appointments and running departments, they're going to be ignored. There's no controlling Trump. There's barely working with Trump. Again, this is the argument behind sort of the Never Trump movement. It's not just because he said he was going to bomb civilians or because he played footsie with KKK, although that did have a lot more to do with it. They're like, we like our racism much more subtle and implied. So I don't know. I kind of think that the Never Trump people, their anger and frustration at just losing control of this election might very well, to pardon the pun, trump the anger of the sort of voters that Trump is drawing in. Because what good is holding this position of power if the fucking Yahoo you got running it is going to appoint, his sons or his sister or this guy he used to play golf with instead of, the general who you've been grooming for 40 years to be whatever the fuck. So
yeah, I think you're.
I mean, you could be right, Peter. You're probably right, but
I think
this is a reason for thinking outside the box.
More authority than maybe we want. I think we also are buying a little too much of the Trump bullshit. We've talked before. I mean, the guy has done some decent business. He's got a large organization. He cannot be this big an idiot and have pulled that stuff off. There's another Trump in there, and there's going to be elements of that Trump running the government.
From your lips to Trump's ears.